Well, hello, it's great to see you all again. Welcome to our series on the Creed that we're working our way through. Today, we're going to look at I believe. So we're still right at the very beginning of the Creed. If you remember last time we looked at I, we looked at who's the I. Well, it's I as a Christian, I as a human being. Well, today we're looking at believe, belief, faith. What is faith? Well, faith is a pretty important thing for a Christian. But what do we mean by faith? And how do we relate faith to knowledge? How do you relate I believe to I know? How do you relate faith to knowledge? How do you relate faith to truth? Is, is faith a stepping stone to truth? Or is faith something that's completely different from truth? Faith and reason, how do you bring those two together? And we're going to look at faith in action in the scientific realm. Yes, it's perhaps something that we think about as a religious thing, as a biblical thing, but actually, as I'll say, faith has played rather a crucial role in the development of science. And I want to give you a couple of examples from my own experience of that one, and we're also going to look a little bit at faith in the creed. What exactly is it that we are believing in? What does the creed actually show us that we say that we want to take on board? Well, those are the things that we're going to be looking at. But let's begin at the beginning, shall we? Let's begin with faith. What do we mean by faith? Or rather, what does Christianity mean by faith? What does the Bible mean by faith? Well, we want to begin in the letter to the Hebrews. So Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1. Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. Being sure of what we hope for, being certain of what we do not see. Faith in this verse is the ability to reach out beyond ourselves. It's the ability to reach out, to envisage, to grasp hold of a reality that is beyond ourselves. That's a rough understanding of what that says. Faith is the ability to reach out, it's to embrace a reality beyond ourselves. And if you think about that verse, if you think about faith and knowledge, faith and knowledge in that verse are not two separate things. Faith, get my hands right, faith in that verse is a way of laying hold of truth and knowledge. Faith is a way to lay hold of truth, knowledge, and reason. Faith and reason in that verse go together. Now, it's actually very important for us to understand that. It's actually critically important for us as Christians in today's world. If we had to live out our faith and give an account of our faith, it is important that we understand that faith and reason, faith and truth, faith and science, faith and whatever it is, are not two separate things. They come together. And it's important that we recognize that, because so much of our society tells us that they are two separate things. Reason is here, faith is here. Actually, reason, get my hand up even higher, reason is better than faith. Reason is objective. It leads to things that are unchallengeably true, but faith is subject. It's just an opinion. And you might have heard. I mean, Richard Dawkins' definition of faith. Richard Dawkins' definition of faith is believing something that you know not to be true. Faith and reason, two completely different things. Reason leads you to truth, and faith, well, that's just total error. And there's the other phrase that I've used before, the phrase which says that truth in religion is just the opinion that has survived. Truth in religion is just the opinion that has survived. So faith in there, faith just leads to opinion, whereas reason leads to truth. Our society has separated out faith from reason, faith from truth, faith from knowledge, as something completely separate, something completely secondary, inferior, if you like. And I actually think that's done an enormous amount of damage. It does an enormous amount of damage to us as Christians if we buy into that. It also makes the task of communicating the gospel in our society incredibly difficult, because if you start to talk about God and about Jesus and about the things of the Christian faith, somebody who's been brought up in our society will immediately say, that's religion. Religion doesn't deal with truth or reason or knowledge or anything like that. Religion deals with faith. Faith is just opinion. Faith is a choice, and it's actually that's what I think is why it's so hard. One of the reasons why it's so hard for us to communicate our faith in our culture, in our society, because of that separation between faith and reason or knowledge or whatever. But actually, if you go back in time, the separation from of reason and knowledge is not was not there originally in our culture. Originally, for many hundreds of years, this saying pertained: "Credo ut intelligam." I believe in order that I may understand. You can see there two names, St. Augustine and St. Anselm. St. Augustine of Hippo, a great scholar, theologian, a towering figure in the world of philosophy. And St. Anselm, former Archbishop of Canterbury. They said, "Credo ut intelligam." I believe in order that I may understand. Faith and reason belong together. In fact, faith is the springboard to reason. Faith is the springboard. It's the first step that we can take in order that we may understand things. It enables us to reach out beyond ourselves, to embrace something that we can then begin to understand and come to some kind of terms with. And that pertained for centuries and centuries, until about the 17th century, beginning of the 17th century. And then a guy called René Descartes, a French philosopher, came along and said this instead: "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. Descartes, an interesting story. Descartes began to doubt things. Descartes was looking for, how can I know that something is really real and really true? And he began to think, well, what can I doubt? And he began to doubt all these things that he put before his mind. He found he could doubt them. The only thing that he couldn't doubt was the fact that he existed as a thinking, rational person. And he said, actually, if I can't doubt that I exist as a thinking, rational person, then reason, thought, human reason alone must be the measure of truth. And so Descartes, even though he would have called himself a Christian, he believed in God and all that sort of stuff, Descartes relegated faith to a secondary position, and instead he relied solely on reason separated from faith. His method of radical doubt led him to the only thing that he could trust was himself as a thinking, rational person. But actually, the problem with Descartes is that actually you can't doubt. The problem with that is doubting isn't a neutral thing, because you can only doubt on the basis of something you already know. It is impossible simultaneously to doubt all your beliefs and all your thoughts. You can only doubt something on the basis of something else that at that moment you are not in any doubt about. You can only doubt something on the basis of something that at that very moment you have faith in, that it's true, that it's real. Somebody once said of that famous phrase, cogito ergo sum, actually what Descartes should have said was not just I think therefore I am, I think therefore I think I am. But anyway, Descartes' method actually, although it's been monumentally influential, is actually based on something that's impossible. You can't doubt everything. You can only doubt on the basis of something you already know. In other words, your reason, thought, has to stand somewhere on faith, just like St. Anselm and St. Augustine said they did. Faith and reason, they go together. They are interdependent rather. And in our book that we're following through this series, Science and Christian Belief, John Polkinghorne, Cambridge University physicist, and in his chapter on knowledge, on the bit that we're looking at I believe, he recognises that in his own work as a scientist. Okay, he's a vicar like me. Well, he's not a vicar, he's a part-time vicar, but he's ordained like me. And he says this: the interdependence of faith and knowledge, faith and reason. We have to believe in order to understand, and we have to understand in order to believe. That is why skepticism is so unfruitful a strategy. Faith and knowledge, faith and belief go hand in hand, and faith, the ability to reach beyond yourself, to embrace something beyond yourself, is the springboard to reason and to knowledge. That's what Polkinghorne has found in his studies, and I must say, in my own nondescript and undistinguished career as a clinical scientist, I came across a couple of examples of this myself. If you've done any chemistry, if you've done A-level chemistry, or I don't know whether do they do this at GCSE? I don't know anyway. But anyway, if you've ever done chemistry, you'll recognise immediately C6H6, which is the structure of benzene, which is nasty stuff, benzene. I've been sloshing benzene and benzene derivatives around for years. But anyway, nasty stuff, benzene. Benzene C6H6, you'll recognise the two ring structures that tautomers. One's a tautology. This is a tautology. Anyway, the ring structure of benzene. The ring structure of benzene was discovered by a German called Kekule. And Kekule, I remember in one of my chemistry lectures, the lecturer telling us the story of how Kekule came to understand the ring structure of benzene. And Kekule knew it was C6H6, and he couldn't figure out how it possibly could work as a molecule. And then in Kekule's own words, he had a daydream. He had a vision in the middle of the day. And in Kekule's vision was a snake eating its own tail. That's my rough drawing of Kekule's vision, his daydream as he called it. A snake eating its own tail. And he thought, that's it. That's the reality. Benzene is a ring. From his vision, from what a Christian, any religious person would recognize as faith, from faith he reached out. From his vision he reached out and he grasped the reality. And in grasping the reality of a ring molecule, he was then able to pursue scientific knowledge. And another thing that I have come across over the years, if you go into a hospital today, if you're going for tests, I'm going in hospital next week for some tests. Well, if you go in for tests, chances are one of those tests will involve a technique known as the polymerase chain reaction, PCR. The polymerase chain reaction, PCR, is a vastly important biomedical technique that lies behind some of the most important advances of the last 30 odd years. And the polymerase chain reaction, PCR, it's basically a way of amplifying up little bits of DNA. It's photocopying DNA, basically. And it was developed by an American biochemist called Carrie B. Mullis. And he worked for a company in America called Cetus Corporation. And Carrie B. Mullis, he developed the polymerase chain reaction. How did he do it? Well, he did it through a vision. He did it by what happened to him one day when he was driving his car. And let me read to you, this is Mullis's own account of how he came to grasp the polymerase chain reaction. Sometimes a good idea, says Mullis, comes to you when you are not looking for it. Through an improbable combination of coincidences, naivety and lucky mistakes, such as a revelation came to me one night in April 1983 as I gripped the steering wheel of my car and snaked along a moonlit mountain road in Northern California's Redwood Country. That was how I stumbled across a process that could make unlimited numbers of copies of genes, a process now known as the polymerase chain reaction. He had a vision. He goes on to describe his vision of pieces of DNA multiplying in front of his very eyes as he was driving the car. He had a vision, and from his vision he reached out and he grasped the reality of what could be, and then he pulled it into practice. Faith, vision, faith, they're all tied up, led him to knowledge. Faith and reason, they are not two separate things. Faith is not inferior to reason. Faith and reason belong together. Together, they are the springboard. They are the way that we discover what is true and what is real. And you can see that in the Bible, the interdependence of faith and reason, that it is there in the Bible. I'd like to read to you another passage I've read before on some of these things, but I'm going to read it to you again. It's the beginning of the first letter of John. I think John is usually recognised as dealing with sort of philosophical issues that the other gospel writers of the New Testament perhaps they don't stand aside to, but it's not really central to them, whereas philosophical issues were probably central to John. And he says this: that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at, and our eyes have touched, this we proclaim concerning the word of life. The life appeared, we have seen it, we testify to it, and we proclaim to you the eternal life which was with the Father and has appeared to us. We proclaim it to you. We proclaim to you what we have seen and heard, so that you may have fellowship with us, and our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. We write this to make our joy complete. What does John want them to do? He wants them to reach out and to embrace a new reality. That reality is based on the historical knowledge and testimony of John and his fellow apostles. He wants them by faith to reach out, to embrace truth, to embrace reality. John knew very well that faith and reason, faith and knowledge are interdependent. In fact, actually, faith is the key to knowledge. Personal commitment is not arbitrary. Faith is not arbitrary, because faith reaches towards knowledge and reason. As a Christian, I am personally committed to Jesus Christ, because that's how I come to know the truth about him. I am personally committed to him. And hello, and just as I finish, the creed asks me to be personally committed. Personally committed to what? To a reality, to a truth that he wishes to show me. But what is that reality that the creed wants to show us? What is it that we can embrace by faith? What is it? What is that truth to which it wants to lead us? Well, if you want to know the answer to those questions, you need to tune in to the next video. See you soon.